We're back with another When I'm Not Podcasting, Big Tobacco, and the story is coming for legal marijuana. And here's what's going on if you did not know the story. So recently there has been some lobbying groups that are trying to go ahead and help get cannabis legalization across the finish line. And on the Blunt Business program that I host, along with the folks at Cannabis Radio, I've talked about that with a number of people. And there's been a number of people I've talked to when it comes to New York legalization and other things. But here's the thing that really has gotten me really talking about a lot. And there's a lot of stories going on in cannabis right now. Vape, for people that want to have vaping companies trying to go and mail vape products now, there's a ban by Federal Express and the U.S. Postal Service and other places for getting vape products across state lines because of the issues with the whole nicotine vape stuff. There's a part of that. The other part is New York just got legalized. Yay. It's going to take a couple of years for that all to get implemented, but right away there are certain things that are going to be decriminalized when it comes to possession and when it comes to consuming cannabis in public. So there's that to go and work off of. Now, the other story that's very important and not getting a whole lot of talk about, but I am trying to stir up the pot, is the fact that there is one particular agency, a coalition of cannabis regulation and education called CPAIR that is now teaming up cannabis companies with the likes of tobacco and alcohol companies combined to work on cannabis regulation. And that is where people need to realize to be coming from. Now, one of the people I got to interview this week was Tommy Chong. Yes, the Tommy Chong. And he talked about the fact that, it's going to be understood that, we're going to have to go and find that the fact that we're going to have not this kind of purity of the cannabis heritage that we have, that everybody wants to have, that the growers want to have, that the people that are cultivators, the people that are in this industry for a long time, it was going to get corporatized. It's going to go and get to a point where big money to politicians is going to have to be thrown at them to make this get passed. And that's what's going on here. So here's what we got. This is a story that just came in from the Boston Globe. Big tobacco coming from legal marijuana. It's no coincidence that Altria in 2018, which owns the Marlboro brand, invested $1.8 billion in the cannabis company and $12.8 billion in Juul, a nicotine vape product. So into the story they talk about now that there's the comprehensive bill to legalize marijuana. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says, quote, "We don't want the big tobacco companies, the big liquor companies to swoop in and take over." Well, that's good. As public health activists, an inaugural Massachusetts State Marijuana Commissioner and tobacco regulatory science and health disparities researcher, they agree. Tobacco companies are convicted racketeers who knowingly misled the public with false claims about their products for decades. Most of us can picture it. Rich men in a boardroom examining a graph of profits from cigarettes, a product that kills up to half of its users, scheming new ways to chemically alter products to be more addictive and new populations to target. So tobacco companies continue to target vulnerable people and profit off of nicotine addiction. It's no coincidence. Then in 2018, Altria, again, owns the Marlboro brand, invested in the cannabis company and Juul. And they're trying to get a whole thing put together. So if no one's ever overdosed on cannabis, what's the worst the big tobacco could do? We can only need to look at the hundreds of chemicals that these companies added to cigarettes to design the most addictive product in history. They manipulated the chemical makeup of cigarettes for profit, adding ammonia to make the nicotine hit the brain faster, for example, and intentionally defrauded the public about the harms of safety of their tobacco products. Quote, "Advertising, commercialization, and profit motives are what keep me up at night." Andrew Friedman, who's Colorado's former marijuana coordination director, who helped set up one of the country's first comprehensive marijuana regulatory systems, he said, quote, "They start to learn how to get people to get addicted and how to get people addicted at a younger age." This is good. And I am going to talk to Andrew Freeman. He is actually the executive director of CPAIR that I just talked about. So I have concerns, but it doesn't mean I don't think that he's not hitting the right marks when it comes to what they're doing right now. So that's, I want to find out what's going to be said. So I'm looking forward to speaking to him in a couple of weeks to get more of his take. And I will be using this article, as a matter of fact, to go ahead and follow up on the comments he's making. Now, he serves as the executive director of an organization founded last month by Altria and other major players in industries that have a long record of actively and effectively fighting sensible public health regulations. States with legal cannabis so far managed to resist big tobacco's playbook, implementing rigorous public health regulations for marijuana and sharply restricted limitations on packaging and advertising that appeal to children. Because of these restrictions, preliminary evidence shows that youth usage rates of cannabis have not increased in states that legalize marijuana, and many even have decreased after legalization for adult use. Preliminary evidence. Somebody want to go ahead and talk to the Fox Newses and the MSNBCs and the CNNs of the world and explain that? Interesting. Gonna hold on to that story right there. I like that. Put that to the reading list. Several states, including California and Illinois, have begun the process of examining marijuana legislation as an opportunity to repair some of the harm and devastation caused by the war on drugs. Make no mistake, tobacco companies want to erase these rules and write their own. Cannabis is a relatively benign substance in its natural form, but it is not risk-free. And there's nothing inherent about cannabis that protects it from being combined with other substances to create products that kill people and target vulnerable populations. Now, here's what's going on. What it looks like is, Shalene Title, we've had her on Cannabis Radio. She was on the Green Rush podcast, which is now not on Cannabis Radio, but we had her on that program when that show first launched on Cannabis Radio. And she was a member of the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission. Also, a cannabis policy practitioner resident at the Drug Enforcement and Policy Center at Ohio State University's Moritz College of Law. So, listen, very well sound advice. And here's the thing that she does make sense of, is that we should be concerned about if tobacco does come in, are they going to try to go and do something to try to, lace, if you will, cannabis that's being put out there? If they put out cigarettes that will be nicotine laced. I understand that part. But I think what's happening is that the tobacco companies, I think they want to just change their crop to cannabis. I think that's where they're starting to be. I think some of that's got to be coming in because they know they're losing the battle on trying to continue to have tobacco out there as they do, because there are less people consuming it and imbibing on it. So if they can switch to cannabis once it becomes legalized with the help of CPAIR and other organizations. If alcohol comes into the same play and they decide to go put the lobbying money in to legalize, that's what the tobacco companies want to do. They want to grow it themselves, or they want to work with the cannabis companies to create products, mass production. And what are you going to do? They're going to do it anyway. That's what they'll do eventually, if whenever it gets legalized or not. That's the whole idea. But again, I like that Chuck Schumer is actually talking about the fact that if cannabis is coming in, we don't want tobacco and alcohol to be able to go ahead and specifically control the legalization efforts. And more importantly, the cannabis industry is very concerned with, and I agree wholeheartedly, is that everybody has to have a seat at the table. There cannot be anybody left out. Social equity is very important to this industry. Obviously, that is very important. People getting second chances, those that have been convicted for past offenses, expunging records, things like that. Yeah, that's very important. And giving the industry a chance for people to go ahead and be in the business to get a license and to be able to go ahead and start a business in this industry and not just be discriminated in so many different ways and forms. So all those things are very important. And by the way, I got that bit of advice right there from Dr. Dina, who I got to interview as well on a future Blunt Business episode. So go ahead and subscribe. Not subscribe. Apple says don't say subscribe. Follow Blunt Business. Find the show and follow it. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you find it, and listen to the show. It's great. So do that, and we'll keep an eye on this. And again, once I get to hear back from Andrew Friedman, I can't wait to go and talk to him, because again, I'm starting to feel a little bit better about what's going on here. But again, I want to make sure that certain things are met here overall. So we'll talk about that on an upcoming episode of Blunt Business. But in the meantime, this is when I'm not podcasting. We talk more about cannabis. And I know you like these videos. And please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll talk to you next time.